The message sat at the top of the family group chat, like a quiet verdict. My parents sent a message in the family group. "We think it's better if you step back for now." For a moment, the screen glowed against my face in the dark kitchen. I could hear the refrigerator humming, the clock ticking, the ordinary sounds of a house that suddenly didn't feel like mine anymore. Then my aunt replied with a thumbs up. 30 years of birthdays, dinners, favors, and loyalty, reduced to a tiny yellow hand approving my removal. No one asked what happened. No one defended me. No one even called. Just silence. I stared at the message thread while the little "seen" marks appeared beside everyone's names, one by one, like witnesses nodding along. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply typed, "I understand. I'll respect that," and take some space from the family. Then I put my phone down, because sometimes the smartest revenge doesn't begin with shouting. It begins with silence. My name is Daniel, and in my family, I was always the reliable one, not the favorite, not the loudest, just the one everyone called when something went wrong. When my cousin needed help paying tuition, I wired the money without asking questions. When my uncle's store nearly closed during a slow year, I spent weekends fixing his inventory system for free. When my parents wanted to renovate the house, I handled the contractors, the permits, the endless phone calls. No one ever called it generosity. They called it Daniel being Daniel. Quiet, responsible, predictable. Somewhere along the way, my role stopped being appreciated and started being expected. At family dinners, conversations flowed around me like I was part of the furniture. My ideas were politely ignored until someone older repeated them 10 minutes later. My achievements were met with quick nods before the attention shifted back to someone else's drama. I noticed it, of course, but I told myself family worked that way. You give you support, you don't keep score. What I didn't realize was that while I kept showing up for them, they had slowly written a different story about me in their heads. To them, I wasn't the one holding things together. I was the one who could be pushed aside without consequences. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was quieter than that. Small moments that felt harmless on their own, but stacked together like stones. At my cousin Farah's engagement dinner, I suggested a simple plan to help organize the ceremony budget. My uncle barely looked up from his plate. "Let's not overcomplicate things," he said, waving his fork lightly. 10 minutes later, my older cousin repeated the exact same idea. This time my aunt smiled. "That's actually smart." Everyone nodded. I said nothing. At another gathering, my father joked about me being too serious. When I mentioned investing some family savings more carefully, a few people chuckled. My mother gave me that look, the one that meant, "Don't make things awkward." So I leaned back in my chair and let the conversation move on. Then there were the quieter signals. The way conversation stopped when I entered the room. The way decisions were suddenly made without including me, even when they involved things I'd helped build. Once, I overheard my aunt whisper to my mother in the hallway. "He takes things too personally," she said. My mother sighed softly. "That's just how he is." Their voices were calm, casual, as if they were discussing the weather. That's when I realized something important. They weren't worried about hurting me. They were comfortable doing it. The message in the family group chat wasn't the beginning of the problem. It was the moment everything finally became clear. A week earlier, my uncle had called me late at night. His store was struggling again. Suppliers unpaid. Accounts messy. Customers complaining about delayed orders. He sounded exhausted. "Daniel, you're good with systems," he said. "Can you take a look?" Just for a few days. I spent the entire weekend there. I sorted invoices, rebuilt the inventory records, even negotiated with one of his suppliers to buy him time. By Sunday night, the numbers finally made sense again. Before leaving, I told him quietly, "The business will survive, but you'll need to follow the plan." He nodded, distracted, already answering another call. 3 days later, the family group lit up. My uncle had told everyone that I'd interfered in his business and made things more complicated. My father added that maybe I needed to step back and let elders handle things. Then came the message. "We think it's better if you step back for now," and that thumbs up from my aunt. Standing in my kitchen that night, staring at the screen, I felt something settle inside me. Not anger, something colder. For the first time, I understood my mistake. I had spent years proving my loyalty to people who never planned to value it. After that night, I did exactly what they asked. I stepped back. Not dramatically, not angrily, just quietly. The first thing I did was open my laptop and review everything I had ever handled for the family. Over the years, I had become the unofficial problem solver. Finances, contracts, digital accounts, supplier negotiations. Most of it had happened because someone said, "Daniel will know what to do," and I usually did. But this time, instead of fixing things, I simply organized them. I transferred the store management files back to my uncle's email. I removed myself from shared banking alerts my father had asked me to monitor. I cancelled the weekly financial summaries. I used to prepare for the family properties. Each change took less than a minute. I didn't leave angry messages. I didn't announce anything in the group chat. I just stopped being the invisible structure holding everything up. At the same time, I focused on my own work. For years, I had quietly built a small consulting business, helping struggling local shops organize their operations and finances. The same work I'd been doing for my family for free. Now I had time to take it seriously. New clients came quickly. Word travels fast when you solve problems calmly and efficiently. Within months, my schedule was full. And for the first time in years, none of my energy was being spent holding together people who believed I was the problem. The consequences didn't arrive all at once. They unfolded slowly, the way quiet mistakes always do. About 2 months after I stepped back, my phone rang while I was meeting with a client. I silenced it and finished the consultation first. When I checked later, I saw 3 missed calls from my father. That was unusual. He rarely called unless something was wrong. I returned the call that evening. His voice sounded strained, like someone trying not to admit they were overwhelmed. "The store system, it's not working properly," he said. "Your uncle says the supplier orders are mixed up again." I leaned back in my chair, looking out the office window at the city lights. "That system was the one I built," I replied calmly. A long pause followed. "Well, can you come take a look?" he asked. For years, I would have grabbed my keys immediately. But this time, I simply said, "I thought it was better if I stepped back." Silence filled the line, because when the person quietly holding everything together disappears, the cracks become visible very quickly. And for the first time in my life, I didn't rush to fix them. The calls started coming a few weeks later. Not angry ones, confused ones. My cousin messaged first, "Do you still have the login for the supplier system?" Then my aunt called, her voice unusually careful. "The renovation payments are delayed. You used to handle that, right?" For the first time in years, the family group chat was full of questions that no one seemed able to answer. I watched it all quietly. The same people who once treated my involvement like interference were now discovering how many moving parts I had been quietly managing behind the scenes. Bills were late. Deliveries were missed. Small problems kept turning into bigger ones because no one wanted to admit they didn't know how things worked. At a Sunday gathering I skipped, my cousin later told me the mood was tense. My uncle blamed the suppliers. My father blamed bad timing. No one mentioned me directly, but everyone felt the absence. And that's the strange thing about being underestimated. When you're always dependable, people stop noticing the weight you carry for them until the day you finally put it down. That's why this mattered. Not because I wanted them to fail, but because sometimes the only way people understand your value is when your silence replaces your effort. A few months later, the family group chat was quieter. Not because everything had been fixed, but because people had finally learned to stop assuming I would. I still saw the occasional message. My father sharing photos from a dinner, my aunt forwarding holiday wishes, my cousins making plans. No one asked me to return and I didn't ask for an apology. The distance had changed something inside me. For the first time in years, my time felt like it belonged to me. My consulting work kept growing, and the clients who called me now did something my family never really did. They respected the help they received. They listened. Sometimes late at night, I thought about that moment in the kitchen when the message appeared. "We think it's better if you step back for now." At the time, it felt like rejection. Now it felt like permission. Permission to stop proving my worth to people who had already decided not to see it. Family, I realized, isn't just about who shares your name. It's about who values your presence. And the quiet truth I finally accepted was this. The moment they asked me to step back was the moment I finally stepped forward into my own life.